I'm just gonna say that I have COVID so that I have an excuse for my voice being so nasally, when really it's just always nasally. The way that you start your movie can make or break it, whether the audience knows that for a fact or just knows it subconsciously. It is the first thing that you see and your first impression of what is to come. You can still see the bodies on the floor at the beginning of Infinity War. You can still hear bell bottoms playing while Baby drives through Atlanta. You can still picture all of the cars on that highway while people are dancing to Another Day of Sun. The way that you start your movie is going to set up not only the exposition, but the entire vibe and energy that will be put into the rest of your film. And there's no right or wrong way to start your movie, only subjectively good and bad, but the opening is going to show your audience exactly what type of movie you are trying to be and set how good they think you are at accomplishing that. If your movie starts off like this, people can expect more action. If your movie starts off like this, people can expect more drumming. And when your movie starts off like this, well, people will just automatically assume that the rest of the movie is perfect. And while I say that it's subjective, and it is, don't get me wrong, but something that bothers me so incredibly much is an opening scene with lazy writing. An opening that doesn't try to establish tone or characters in an interesting way. And the biggest offender of this is opening your film with narration. And now just for a second, I want to talk about show, don't tell. Putting things in your story that show what is happening or what your character is going through without it being explicitly said. And with that in mind, let's look at the opening to Lady Bird. From this opening shot, you can see that Lady Bird and her mom are sharing this bed, and the first line is,
"Do you think I look like I'm from Sacramento?"
Those two things instantly tell us the premise of this movie. It's about a girl from Sacramento and her mom is a big part of the movie. Great, but that's not all. Listen to these couple of lines that they share in the car.
The only exciting thing about 2002 is that it's a palindrome.
Okay, fine. Well, yours is the worst life of all, so you win.
I don't even want to go to school in this state anyway. I hate California. I want to go to the East Coast.
Your dad and I will barely be able to afford in-state tuition.
There are loans,
Your brother,
scholarships.
your very smart brother, he can't even find a job.
He and Shelley work. They have
They
jobs.
bag at the grocery store. That is not a career, and they went to Berkeley. Your father's company is laying off people right and left. Did you even know that? No, of course you don't, because you don't think about anybody but yourself. You're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Lady Bird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me
because your
Lady
name
Bird
is
like you
Christine.
said you would.
Now what do we know from watching this scene? Well, we know that 1, it's the year 2002. 2, her mom thinks that she overreacts a lot. 3, Lady Bird's main goal is to go to the East Coast and move out of Sacramento. 4, Lady Bird's parents aren't that rich and can't afford Lady Bird's tuition out of state. 5, Lady Bird's brother went to Berkeley and now bags groceries with a person named Shelley. 6, Lady Bird's father's job is in danger. And 7, Lady Bird's original name was Christine. And now we learned all of that through this one scene. All of these things are explained to us in a very simple but effective way. It's not shoved down your throat because it's just explained through this conversation. And we know all about so many different plot lines and characters, and by this point, we're only, like 3 minutes into the movie. And you didn't catch all that, well that's fine, because, things are still going to be set up later, even if you did miss all that. This just sets up for what the rest of the movie is going to be like. And now that we've seen a good example of an opening, let's see what a bad example is. Let's look at these couple of lines from Paper Towns, a movie adaptation of the hit John Green young adult novel.
Of all the houses and all the subdivisions in all the state of Florida, I wound up living across the street from Margot Roth Spiegelman. From the moment I saw her, I was hopelessly, madly in love. Due to our close proximity in both age and location, and for no other reason I could ever discern, we soon became friends.
Now what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that out of all the houses and all the subdivisions in all of Florida, he ended up living next door to Margot Roth Spiegelman. Or from the moment he saw her, he was hopelessly and madly in love. And don't forget that due to their close proximity in both age and location, and no other reason he could ever discern, they soon became friends. This is how to open your film the wrong way. Book to movie adaptations are very, very big on the whole open your movie with sloppily put together narration, because the people making them are literally just trying to recreate the books themselves. And maybe in the style of a book, just having these words written down would mean something, but this movie is quite literally just repeating what the book is saying. Look, right here, that's exactly what John Green is saying.
Out of all the houses, in all the subdivisions, in all of Florida, I ended up living next door to Margot Roth Spiegelman.
But Taylor, that's what these movies are supposed to do, I hear you saying. They're supposed to bring these books to life. And yes, I get that, but that means showing us the vivid imagery that comes from these books. Showing us what Hogwarts would look like, not just writing down word for word, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4, Privet Drive, were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. This isn't Audible's 1-month free trial. This is a movie. Watch these couple of shots again without the audio. It's literally the exact same thing. From this shot right here, you can see that they live next door to each other. From this shot right here, you can see that he is in love, and from this shot right here, you can see that they are friends. The narration doesn't give you anything important, it doesn't set up anything, and it doesn't serve any sort of purpose. They do it because this was in the book, and that's how the book starts, with exposition. Now let's look at another example. How does Twilight start?
I'd never given much thought to how I would die.
And now what are the first couple lines of that book? Well, look at that! And this isn't even something that movie adaptations of books deal with. Lazily written exposition through narration exists in all types of movies. Remember the beginning of Onward? Well, neither do I. I might have missed something. Let's see.
Long ago,
What about that other pre-COVID movie, Dolittle? How did that start?
There once was a peculiar doctor.
And what about that other 2020 movie that everyone loved, Hillbilly Elegy?
People ask where I'm from. I say Ohio because that's where I live most of my life.
Oh, and we can't forget The Kissing Booth 2. That one's a classic.
Considering where we left off, I'm guessing you...
2020 was just a horrible year. And the point I'm trying to make is that awfully written exposition can often lead to a bad film. And in a book, especially ones written in the first person, you can do that. The entire book is narration, that's like the point of a book. But that's beside the point. The point is that this way of writing in a movie is just lazy. And do you want even more proof? Let's see what the best movie adaptations of books are. Little Woman, 2019, starts off with this scene of Jo talking to the publisher about her book. It, 2017, opens with this scene of Georgie in the little paper boat. The Shining, 1980, this insanely creepy montage of the drive in the middle of nowhere. Fantastic Mr. Fox, 2008, it's Mr. and Mrs. Fox talking to each other. Those are just a handful of examples, but I know that I can name more. Still don't believe me on that? These are some Disney Channel original movies. Now, which of these did you enjoy, and which of these did you think were absolute garbage? Well, these are the ones that started without narration. Wow, shocking. And while I'm not saying that this automatically makes your movie terrible, in fact, plenty of movies with voiceovers are great, but it's the first sign that your movie's direction is lazy. But okay, the message behind this video is not to completely stop using narration to start your movies, because, well, that's absurd. The message is to do it in a smart and interesting way. Don't just use it to give exposition, but use it to hook the viewer. Once again, show, don't tell. One of my favorite movies, Marriage Story, starts off with narration, but instead of using it to say, these two used to live a happy marriage but now don't, here's what it does. It shows you this montage of how they used to live, and the narration doesn't just give you backstory, it indirectly tells you what Charlie thinks of Nicole through little subtleties in his delivery. You can tell that he loved her, and it's just overall very, very sincere. And then vice versa for Nicole's monologue over here. And not only that, but it's also used to deliver the shocking end to this scene where you're told that this is all just an exercise for marriage counseling. The narration doesn't just serve the plot, it serves the characters. It gives us information, but it isn't spoon-fed to us. We aren't going to need to know that Charlie likes to curse whenever he plays Monopoly, but we will need to know a little background information, like their location, their names, their occupations, the fact that they have a child, the fact that they loved each other, and the fact that they both have slight anger issues. None of that is explicitly said. Noah Baumbach never wrote into the script, Scarlett Johansson is my wife and I married her and I had a child. You just see that. Now earlier, I mentioned Disney Channel originals. Well, I left out one that was just very, very good, and I did that on purpose. That movie is Lemonade Mouth. Lemonade Mouth is unironically such a beautiful movie, and I refuse to believe otherwise. But how does it start? Well, you hear this voiceover, and now this doesn't necessarily do anything to help you learn more about the characters, but what it does do is it gets you excited, because despite the fact that it is a voiceover, it still has a hook. And you hear all these alleged things people have called Lemonade Mouth. You see that these people are all preparing to play somewhere, and you see that all of these people want to go see them. and then it shows you that the entire thing starts in detention. And that works so incredibly well because of that shift tonally. It drops you in and it gets you pumped before actually doing anything else. It doesn't tell you the plot or the characters or the story or anything like that. In fact, it doesn't tell you anything at all. The only thing that it tells you is that these people are in a band, which you should probably know going into this. I mean, who doesn't know what Lemonade Mouth is? And just as a final example, to wrap things up, here is the opening to Ferris Bueller. Now, I don't need to show clips from Ferris Bueller because I'm pretty sure we all have this monologue ingrained in our heads, but what exactly does this do for us, the viewer? Well, I mean, it technically isn't narration, but it still has those problems that I already said earlier. It's done for exposition. Or is it? This opening shows us that Ferris Bueller is a horrible person. Ferris Bueller was never a good person. He's a rule breaker, and he's an idiot, and he's manipulative, and they made the conscious choice to give him this exposition, where he talks straight to the camera, because it's the strongest way to gain that connection with the audience, so that you don't go the whole movie thinking that Ferris Bueller is just the worst. He's a psychopath, and he doesn't care about anyone. So we can't just assume that he is going to have the same thought processes as everyone else, because, as this movie has already explained, he doesn't. Imagine if they never directly told you about Ferris Bueller, and you were just watching from the perspective of someone else. It's just a kid who tries to ditch school and takes 2 other students out of class to ditch school, gets his teacher to go crazy, and then does a bunch of illegal stuff and eventually helps in the breaking of this very, very expensive car. And his friend takes the blame for all of it. If I were any other character in this movie, I would probably hate him. So we need to know that no other character matters. This is the character that we should care about. Plus, this movie is not trying to be serious. Nothing about it is serious, and him breaking the 4th wall does a great job of showing you that this movie is not gonna be one that you will need to analyze and think about deeply. I mean, people have, but they weren't supposed to. And I know there are plenty of other bad ways to start movies. I mean, I still don't quite understand what they were trying to do with Mank. But narration, unless done by someone who knows exactly what they are doing, is lazy. And well, now all this talking is just making me very tired. What movies are popular right now?
Will Woolworth. Oh yeah, that's right. Now I remember. A note about witches. See, here's the thing about it.
Oh God!